Hi, clowns. Welcome to Carmelia Street. I'm Tori,
I'm Sam.
and we are gathered here today on this, the day of our recording after the Opalite video.
Sometime after the Opalite video.
hmm
So we have been blessed with that, which I'm so excited to talk about a little bit with you. There's so many
Yeah, me too.
things.
Yeah. hmm It was a fun little video.
hmm For sure. I feel like everyone was kind of expecting like a more dancey showgirl video. So it was really cool to
hmm
get a humorous, tongue-in-cheek type of
Quirky.
situation.
And I feel like we got the showgirl video with, why can't I think of the name?
Fate of Ophelia.
Yes, with Fate of
Ophelia.
Ophelia. Yeah.
hmm
I mean, so showgirly. So yeah, I don't know. I was seeing that a lot too, that people wanted a showgirl video. And for the listeners, we're talking about Taylor Swift released a new music video in this last week, I think.
hmm
And it was for the album, The Life of a Showgirl. So I guess there's a lot of online discourse over like people wanted it to be very like showgirly and like glitter and feathers and all that, and it was like a 90s like mall vibe, which I loved. It
hmm
was so cool.
Right.
um but yeah, there's been a lot of discourse over that of like people wanted it more showgirly, but I like it.
Right. Right. Oh, I was thrilled. And tying into the video, Tori's name today is Hit Me With That Spray. So
hmm
please elaborate.
yes. So in the video, it was for the Opalite music video, and they she sprays herself with the Opalite spray, and then like things get better and shimmery and um more exciting. I don't know, not more exciting,
hmm
but just better.
Better.
And I've just been having one of those weeks where it's like I feel like I keep getting hit with these punches, and like I'm trying to keep my head up about it, and be like, "Oh, just roll with the punches. Like you're fine. That's got to be the last one."
Must
And then
be.
right. And then something else hits me. So yeah, just hit me with the spray.
Hit me with that spray. Please. Someone.
Yes.
Anyone?
Yes. Yes. Where is it? I searched on Amazon. I could not find it.
Dang it. It's only a matter of time, I'm sure.
Yes, true.
But that's great.
Sam today is Lord Farquaad,
hmm
and I would like to know what the double A's are about.
Well, Lord Farquaad is a character from Shrek, and that is actually how you spell his name. I'm not sure of
Oh,
the
it is?
double A's. Yeah. At least I'm pretty sure. Now I'm like second guessing myself. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure.
you could be right. It just looks wrong to me. I don't,
It
because
it
it's two
sure
A's.
does. No, it is two A's.
It is?
And yeah. And I guess the reason is it's it's making fun of myself because I got a haircut and it's the bangs are just super blunt and I'm not used to them being blunt. I know this is like a hairstyle that a lot of people do. It's just not a hairstyle for me. And as every time I look in the mirror, I think Lord Farquaad from Shrek. And that's just pretty much what's happening in my life right now. It happened just yesterday, so I'm still recovering.
She did chop him a bit. And it's like I've seen like it can be a really cool like bang style, but I've only seen it with like a shorter hairstyle. Like you have very long, yeah, and you have very like long hair. I just haven't seen the bangs like that with long layered kind of wavy hair that you it
Mm-hmm.
was an interesting choice
Mm-hmm.
of her to make for you.
It was interesting, and at the time, it's like, they have you take your glasses off, they wet your hair, and
Yeah.
so when it was wet, it was longer than it seemed, and so you can imagine my shock when I got home and like actually like looked at it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like it's pretty choppy
It
and
is
it's
pretty
just
choppy.
yeah, it's
But you should try that like thing on that TikTok that we were talking about, just to like give it a little layer, like a
And
little.
yeah, and what's funny is I actually did do that, like, because we talked about probably that was probably like a month or so ago, and I needed a trim on my bangs, so I did do that, and it worked great. But I also needed an overall like
Right, right,
trim,
right.
but I didn't want anything crazy. Like, I just mainly wanted the length of my hair cut off, and she's like, "Oh, do you want me to trim your bangs too?" I'm like, "You know what? They're in my eyes a little bit. Yeah, why not?
Right.
Because you're the professional." And I'm literally doing that little hack with like kitchen scissors at
Yeah.
home. So surely it can't be any worse than what I do at home. Come to my surprise, it can be worse.
Can be, yeah.
I was originally going to wear a hat, but I decided
Oh,
it didn't, well, I mean, it didn't work with the headphones, and it's fine. And we can just laugh about this.
they'll grow back very quickly.
It'll be fine. Yes, my hair
Yeah.
has been growing back pretty fast lately, thankfully. So it's fine. But just call me Lord Farquaad today and for the next few weeks. And with that being said, should we fuck some shit up?
Let's fuck it up. Up, up,
Up,
up,
up, up.
up, up, up.
All right. So, today we are going back to the morning of December 16th, 2000. A 30-year-old man named Mike Williams leaves before dawn to go duck hunting at Lake Seminole, which is located near the Florida-Georgia border. He was a devoted husband and a dedicated father to an 18-month-old daughter named Ansley, and he wanted to go on one last hunting trip before he left for his anniversary trip with his wife, Denise. However, the day went on and Mike never returned home. He knew this lake like the back of his own hand, and this was extremely unlike him to be late or to not communicate his whereabouts. Authorities believed that the explanation was simple. It was an accident, a tragic encounter with nature. But Lake Seminole holds some deep, dark secrets, and yet sometimes the truth hides in plain sight. So, just to go back in the history a little bit, his full name was Jerry Michael Williams, but all of his friends called him Mike. He was born on October 16th, 1969, in Tallahassee, Florida, to parents Jerry and Cheryl Williams. He was their youngest son and had an older brother named Nick. They grew up with humble beginnings and lived in a mobile home, and his father, Jerry, worked as a bus driver, and his mother, Cheryl, worked in a daycare. And they saved every penny they could to get their children the best education that they could afford through private
Oh,
schools.
wow.
Yeah, I know. And in high school, Mike went to North Florida Christian, which was a private school, and he was at the top of his class between being president of the student council. He was a member of the Key Club, which is a student-led organization that encourages volunteering. He was a star player on the football team, and he was just a busy guy and was just very well liked by everyone. And with even all of that, he even had an overnight job working as a stalker for a grocery store to help his parents pay the bills.
Wow.
Right. So just this stand up, straight laced guy, it seems like. He did also have a girlfriend. Her name was Denise Merrill. She was a cheerleader. And so together, it was just truly this all American dream situation.
Okay. Getting a little Taylor Travis parallel here. Okay.
Yes, football player, cheerleader, and she was also the secretary on the student council. So it's like he was the president, she was the secretary, he was on the football team, she was a cheerleader. So, yeah.
What a power couple.
And then right out of high school, he attended Florida State University, where he studied political science and urban planning. And even before he graduated, he landed a job with a real estate company where he did appraisal work. And he was able to make great money, around $200,000 a year. So in 1994, he ended up marrying his high school sweetheart, Denise. And in 1999, they had a daughter together named Ansley just before Mother's Day. And actually, a news station just happened to be at the hospital when their daughter was born. They were doing some kind of Mother's Day segment, kind of feel good
Yeah.
report. And there is an interview with Mike just absolutely beaming over his newborn daughter and how amazed he is of her and how he has this newfound respect for his wife and women in general for all of the things they go through during childbirth and pregnancy and all of that. So it's just like,
Okay.
oh my gosh.
Right. Just rip my heart out.
So yeah, everyone said that he was a devoted dad and husband. His boss even said that there were times when his wife Denise would call him in the middle of the day saying that she needed gas in her car. So he would leave work, go get her car and put gas in it, and then bring it back for her just so she didn't have to do it when she got off of work.
Wow. What?
And it was even just kind of like this inside joke amongst his coworkers and even friends how they wish they were married to Mike just because he seemed to just do so much for his family. And overall, they were a very popular couple. They had many friends. Their best friends, though, were from high school, another couple who were named Brian and Kathy Winchester. And these two couples did everything together. They went on vacations, they got married around the same time, they bought houses at the same time, they even had kids around the same time within a few months of each other. They were so close.
We know how that goes too, because in our girl group friend, we all had kids
Yeah.
within a year and a half of each other, I think.
Yep. The baby fever is real. Yeah, just so that's just a little bit of backstory on where we're at when everything happens. So in early 2000, Jerry, which is Mike's father, he passed away. And this was devastating for Mike and his family. And Mike decided to look into some different life insurance policies. He already had two separate policies, but after talking with his friend Brian Winchester, who was an insurance agent, he decided to take another life insurance policy out for $1 million dollars to ensure his family would be set if anything were to happen. And Mike knew that his hobbies could put him in some danger. He was an avid hunter, an avid fisherman, um, and just those kinds of things can cause issues sometimes.
For sure,
um,
yeah. I mean, I work
mhm.
outdoors and yeah, I am concerned about wild hogs or panther,
Yeah,
bear, venomous snake. A little less concerned about snakes, but I mean,
right.
anything can happen, yeah.
Exactly. And this is in Florida, your stomping ground. So you know all about that. But yeah, so he knew this could put him into some dangerous situations, and he really wanted to cover his bases and make sure his family was set in case anything happened. Um, so time went on that year, and it is nearing Mike and Denise's wedding anniversary. And the couples had plans to celebrate and take a nice long vacation together. And they even announced to friends and family that they were planning to get pregnant again very soon. On Saturday, December the 16th, 2000, this is the morning before they leave for their anniversary vacation. And Mike wanted to go on just a solo duck hunting trip to Lake Seminole. And this is a place where he has hunted many times before. And he leaves before dawn. It's still definitely dark outside with his boat to the lake, and he is never heard from again. Mike had told Denise that he would be home by noon and that they would leave for the trip afterwards. So when he didn't show up, Denise was immediately concerned because he was never late for things, especially without some kind of notification. She called Brian's wife, Kathy, and asked if she had heard anything, and she said no. She then called her dad to see if he had heard anything, and she told him that Mike had not come home and he hadn't heard anything either. So Denise's dad ended up calling Brian Winchester and asked him to help search for Mike as well. Brian got his father in law and they went to go search the lake. They found his truck near a boat ramp, but there were no signs of Mike, which is when they called the authorities. And then once the police arrived, they continued searching for Mike and ended up finding his boat among the brush on one side of the lake, not too far from where his truck was parked. And in the boat, there was a couple of life jackets. His shotgun was still zipped up in its bag. However, there were no signs of Mike. And
Hmm.
Lake Seminole is pretty big. It's a reservoir that is over 37,000 acres and has 376 miles of shoreline. So
Wow.
authorities knew that they had to act fast to find where he was, whether he was alive or not. And one thing that investigators noticed was that while his boat motor was off, the gas tank was nearly full.
Mm.
So that was just one detail, but nothing else presented itself as being suspicious.
What is he hunting? Is he hunting ducks or birds or something?
Ducks,
Turkey.
yes.
Okay.
Hmm. He said he was going to go duck hunting. Okay, so the Florida Wildlife Commission, along with law enforcement and Mike's friends and family, continued on with a pretty extensive search. And so drownings in Lake Seminole were not exactly uncommon. There had been over 70 drownings reported in the lake. The lake covered a lot of old orchards, and there were lots of tree stumps in the 8 to 10 foot water, and people would end up getting caught on the branches and the stumps and such while swimming.
What a nightmare.
I know, I know. This is another kind of maybe more spooky case I want to cover, but Lake Lanier in Georgia has a
Oh,
lot of mysterious
I heard that
things.
that one covered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sinisterhood, I think, did an episode on that.
Yeah, there's a very dark history with that lake, and it's like I've been swimming in that lake before, so I'm like,
Oh.
oh
It
god.
always makes you like, I don't know, when you've had like a personal tie to it too, it's more interesting to look into it
Yeah,
for sure.
right, right. So everyone was just trying to stay positive and hope that they would find him or just some clues as to what happened. And as the day went on, a winter storm actually started to move in, and the search had to be temporarily stopped as it was no longer safe for people to continue searching. Now their focus was kind of on finding a body just because be
It had been a bit.
it had been a bit, yes. So
And they float after a couple days, I think. Bodies like they try to search before, but a lot of times they're like, we'll probably see a body
mhm.
resurface.
It's funny that you mentioned that because my next notes were that the search had started to go on even for a few months, yet no body was found, which is strange because after time, bodies that will have drowned will rise to the surface due to gases being released from decomposition. And so Mike would often wear waders while he was hunting at this lake, and authorities said it was possible he went overboard somehow in his waders and was not able to get them off in time, and that's what caused them to drown as they
Mm.
fill up with water. I mean, those things are really heavy to begin with, and filling up with
Yeah.
water could cause you to sink to the bottom. But all these theories were just that, just nothing concrete was being found. Um, and during the searches, they even started to use helicopters, and one of the pilots noted a large amount of gators in the lake. So authorities started to fear that Mike had possibly been eaten as well, and this was the theory that they ultimately settled on.
Wow.
So in February, after 44 days of searching, an official statement was made by one of the search parties saying that with the information given, it appears that Mike had been dismembered by a gator and stored at a location which they had not been able to find. Guess that's something that gators do. They will store their prey, which I feel like you might have some insight into a couple of these things that I'll be mentioning, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that I don't. That you said stored, and I'm like, excuse, like what? Like in the
Right.
belly, or they like they hide
They
it
will like
away?
squirrel it away, yeah, for like later times. And this was the only theory that made sense as nobody was being produced. And every single one of the other drowning victims in Lake Seminole had been recovered, but he had not been. So everyone started to accept this theory. Who knows? He wasn't in any kind of financial trouble, like none of that. It's just,
Okay.
it is definitely, it is strange that they're like, he's drowned and just missing somewhere. And they like literally combed this lake like crazy. Um,
Right. And that does happen a lot where like people can be in the water and you just can't find them. But it's just to say that that's definitely what happened.
mhm.
Like, did they interview people and try to like go a homicide route at all?
I don't, I did not find any notes of that. It was just pretty
That's
much,
strange.
it was a search and rescue kind of mission from the start.
Hmm. Yeah, that's, I don't know. Interesting.
So, this theory about the gators was just widely accepted by everybody except for one person, and that's Cheryl, his mom. And we love
Okay.
Cheryl.
Nice.
Cheryl
Okay.
is a boss, and I applaud her for everything that she's about to do.
Women in
So,
STEM.
women in STEM. And we will circle back to Cheryl.
Okay.
Um, so, it's been 6 months after Mike has gone missing. A local fisherman at Lake Seminole, he found a pair of waders. And then 2 days later, because he knows that there's a person missing, so he's like, oh, I need to alert the authorities, which he does. So he begins searching that area, and then 2 days later, Mike's fishing jacket, his hunting license, and a flashlight were found at the same spot. Something was not sitting right with Cheryl. She had so many unanswered questions, and she filled out 27 single spaced notebook pages with questions and notes about everything that had happened. And she just had this undeniable feeling in her gut that Mike was not in the lake and that he had not been eaten by alligators.
I feel like she's the kind of person too who's like going through distress and like channels that energy
Mm-hmm.
into like doing something with it. Way to go,
Yep.
Cheryl.
Way to go, Cheryl. So she started to recall some conversations that she had with her son, Mike. He had mentioned to her in passing at some point that gators do not eat and are not active when it is cold outside. In colder months like December, alligators will enter a state of cold induced dormancy called brumation, which is kind of like hibernation but for reptiles. This is when they reduce their heart rate and activity levels and survive on stored fat and will be pretty much motionless and remain only partially conscious. So the day and night that Mike went missing was super cold for the area. It was 20 degrees.
Hmm.
And so this was a major red flag for Cheryl. She even contacted a wildlife expert in Florida and showed him the police reports. And he ended up making his own report saying that Mike being eaten by an alligator in this weather was pretty much impossible, especially with no evidence left behind.
Right.
And she also knew that her son really prioritized safety. And there is one rule about waders, apparently, is that you never put them on in the boat or before you get to your final destination, because if something were to happen and you go overboard, they would fill up with water and weigh you down and you would probably drown.
And if you do put them on, you put a life vest on as well. I was actually just talking to an ecologist this week about that.
Wow,
Because
yeah.
I'm an ecologist too, and we were talking about like wearing waders and like I was doing some wetland work where I'd fallen like over my head in water.
My
Um,
gosh.
yeah, but I didn't have waders on. But we were talking about that, and yeah, you always wear a life vest if that's a possibility. If it's a possibility that you're going to be like below the knee, you should have a vest on
Hmm.
above the
So
knee.
that's Yeah, that's super interesting that you mentioned that. So it's like it seems like if you are in a position where you are purchasing waders or you have waders on your person, you probably know some safety things about that. I
Especially
mean,
if
my
he's safety conscious. Yeah.
exactly. And he had talked about it before and all of
Right.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's even more like evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Mike's belongings were found, she had even more questions because the waders did not appear to be left underwater for a long time. And as you mentioned, there were no bite marks on them. You would think that they would be kind of slimy with like algae and such as well.
For sure.
Um, yeah, and his license, his hunting license, still had his signature on it, which is very legible.
Yeah.
And you would think it would maybe fade. It's 6 months later. So it's
Yeah,
just
that's
all very weird. And the flashlight still worked as well. And
mm.
being underwater for that amount of time, it's just odd.
And are all these things are all found in the same spot too, right?
Yep, all in the same area. So yeah. How could all of these things be so well preserved after 6 months? And where were the bite marks on the jacket or the waders? And with all the other drownings at Lake Seminole, with resulting in bodies being recovered, Mike's was the only one missing.
Yeah. I just feel like if it was alligators, first of all, it probably isn't because of their, it wasn't called torpor. What was it called? Brumination?
Brumation, yep.
Brumation. Yeah. And I have heard about that before as well. But yeah, so probably very unlikely that it was alligators. Didn't you say
Mm-hmm.
FWC was involved in this? I feel like they should know that.
Oh
But
no,
maybe
yeah,
they were
they.
only doing the searching.
I think so too. Yeah, the Florida Wildlife Commission was definitely thoroughly involved. I think like the jurisdiction, like they had jurisdiction to search the lake, and
Yeah.
the police didn't, so they were working together.
Mm-hmm.
It is odd that that was never mentioned, but it just seems that they're like, well, we can't find anything,
Oh,
so.
right, yeah. And I bet the police didn't ask them, like, hey, do alligators eat in the winter? Like, they probably didn't even think to ask that.
Mm-hmm,
But, anyways,
mm-hmm.
yeah, so he probably didn't get eaten because of that alone. And then if there's no nibbles on the gear, on the waders, if he drowned because he had the waders on and then the waders are not nibbled on, then what are we saying here?
Right, right. It's super. Something is
He,
not
they
adding
just
up.
like plucked the human out of the waders? No.
Right. They don't have that dexterity. Yeah, so this is all very strange. And Cheryl, just with all of this being presented, was absolutely adamant that there was something more to the story. Everyone brushed her off, just saying that she just wasn't able to accept this horrible reality, which I get it. Like, that would suck.
Right.
um, But yeah, that she couldn't accept the horrible reality of what happened to your youngest son, but she still never gave up.
Good for you, Cheryl.
So, on top of these pressing questions, she started to look at the people surrounding her son, Mike. And a few people started showing some red flags,
Oh, okay.
primarily
Brian.
Denise.
Oh, I knew it was Brian or Denise. Okay. Only
Uh,
because the life insurance of it all.
The life insurance, yep. So, primarily Denise, Mike's wife. So, the very day that the search was called off in February, Denise wanted to hold a memorial so that she could move on.
You said the very day that he went missing?
No, it was when the search was officially called off, like right away. She was like, okay, we need a memorial. And his mom wanted to wait a little bit. Denise was pretty adamant, like, let's get this going. I need to move on. So, 6 months later, Denise petitioned a judge to declare Mike legally dead so that she could get a death certificate as bills were starting to pile up and she needed assistance via the life insurance money, which altogether was worth over $1.5 million. So, normally in Florida, a person needs to be missing with a continuous unexplained absence for 5 years.
Oh.
However, a person can be declared dead if evidence shows that they were exposed to a specific danger, like a natural disaster. And a judge declared Mike legally dead, and Denise was able to collect the life insurance money.
It's just so weird because like no one actually knows. Sorry, I'm an ecologist, so like no one knows animal behavior. So to just say that the alligator, it's almost like a lot of people grow up afraid of snakes, but not
Mm-hmm.
many people actually die from snake bites. We have venom in hospitals. Even if you get bit, you're
Mm-hmm.
almost always fine. So it's almost like that same kind of fear of like, oh, alligators bite people and they die. It's just like fear leading people to make legal decisions. That's crazy.
A judge declared Mike legally dead, and Denise was able to collect on the life insurance money after this. So Cheryl had also found this out after the fact. She wasn't even informed. And if she says if she knew beforehand, she would have contested this process and made it to where he wasn't declared officially dead before his body was found or before the 5 years that normally is allowed. So after this, Cheryl began to suspect Denise had something to do with this, but she couldn't understand why. Because Denise and Mike, they had a great relationship. There were no money issues with the couple. They seemed so in love, and as I mentioned earlier, they had just told her that they were planning for a second child very soon.
Right.
So
Oh yeah.
her suspicions grew even larger when she got some disturbing news.
Oh, no.
In 2005, so just 5 years after Mike went missing, Denise and Brian Winchester got married. And if you don't remember who Brian Winchester is, that was
I
Mike's
do.
best friend.
Right. And he had a wife or a
Yep,
girlfriend at
he
least.
Brian had divorced from his wife Kathy in 2004, and a year afterwards Brian and Denise got married. And
So they're both
this was
suspicious, not just
yeah,
one or the other.
right, right. I
Okay.
mean, it's just it like that was his best friend.
I feel like people can bond over grief sometimes.
Hmm.
So like maybe it's a situation like that, but it raises some flags for sure.
I totally get that. It's like a trauma bonding situation. They were already all friends beforehand, and so it isn't totally out of the realm.
It's a little ick and it definitely raises some flags of like how long has that interest been there?
Exactly. So Brian, he divorced from his wife Kathy in 2004, and then Brian and Denise were married. And also remember that Brian is the one who sold Mike his last life insurance policy.
Yeah. No, that's been very prevalent in my
Mhm.
mind.
Right. So when they got married, this kind of started raising red flags with everybody, including the life insurance company, which Brian worked for. And they
Oh,
started their own investigation into this.
interesting.
But yeah, they were not able to find anything. So the case ended up being closed on their end. So through all this, Cheryl was like, oh, I know. But she still did not give up. She continued to press Denise for answers. And finally, Denise said, if you don't stop, you're never going to see your granddaughter, Ansley, again. And Cheryl, unfortunately, had to accept this because she would not give up because she knew something was wrong here. And so it's just sad because Cheryl lost not only her son, but her granddaughter as well.
Which is like the only living bit of him left, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then in 2005, she finally was able to get law enforcement to open the case back up, and she would put
Wow.
up billboards with rewards for information. She wrote the Florida governor every day for over 9 years.
Is that Rick Scott? Sorry.
I think it was she started writing Jeb Bush, and then it was
Wow.
Rick Scott and Charlie Crist. She wrote them all. And
Wow.
one thing that stinks is she found out that all of her letters were just getting placed in like a case file, and no one was actually like reading them or doing, they were just like, oh, this is this lady, let's put it in here. It just like breaks your heart.
It does. Yeah. I mean, a mother's love.
They were suspicious of foul play, but there was nothing that they could do to prove it. The place where Mike had disappeared was never treated as a potential crime scene, so any evidence that they had would be compromised. All of the evidence that Cheryl had presented definitely had to play: the full gas tank in the boat when the motor was off, the pristine waders and hunting gear, the cremation of the gators, and there was zero evidence of them feeding on a human body occurring. And then there was the relationship between Mike's wife, Denise, and his best friend, Brian, who had also just sold him a hefty life insurance policy that had been hastily collected. In 2007, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement officially scratched the alligator theory, but they don't have much else to go on, so the case was just kind of in limbo. So she did really good with pressing them and getting the case back open. So
Yeah.
a few years go by, and something big happens that changes the trajectory of this entire case. In 2012, Denise and Brian start to have some marital problems, and they officially separate. And apparently, Brian had a sex addiction, and this put a lot of strain on their relationship. And then finally, in 2015, Denise filed for divorce. But Brian was not cooperative with this at all. And there was a judge had to order him to comply. The couple, just with the divorce proceedings and such, needed to get an appraisal on their home, which, by the way, was technically Mike's home that he had bought for his family, that they were all just living in now.
Right.
And living off of his life insurance money. Anyway. And so the day that this appraisal was supposed to happen, Brian went a little crazy. It's the morning of August 5th, 2016, and Denise gets in her vehicle to leave for work. And as she's driving, she hears something move in her back seat. She looks in the rearview mirror and sees Brian climbing over her back seat. He starts yelling and screaming at her, and she notices he has a gun. She then notices there's a tarp in the back seat with a bottle of bleach, and she realizes,
Dude, what?
This guy's about to kill me. Yeah. So
And
he is.
it seems potentially experienced. This is, I mean, that, yeah, okay.
So he is demanding her to drive to an isolated place. He has a gun against her ribs, and he's just screaming at her, and she's driving, and she's trying to calm him down. He tells her that he's going to end her, and then he's going to kill himself. So he had been trying, prior to this, he had been trying to reach her through text and phone calls and all of that, but she just was refusing to answer. She would block him on every single number he would try to reach her at. It seems like kind of this last resort situation. She ends up convincing him and calms him down to let her drive to their local CVS. And so she parks there and they talk it over, and she does end up calming him down. This ends up saving her life, and they are somewhat to talk it out, kind of.
They're at CVS.
They're at CVS. And like his truck is, it's like a smaller town. His truck is parked nearby. She's like, please, let's talk about this. It'll be fine. Don't worry. And she calms him down enough to where he gets out of the vehicle and goes to his own car. Okay. So she also promises him, she's like, I'm not going to go to the police. Don't worry.
I hope
this will
she
be
does.
fine.
Instantly.
Of course, yeah. Immediately after, she goes straight to the police.
Amazing. Good.
And she goes straight there, where she makes a report, and Brian is then promptly arrested and charged with kidnapping and aggravated assault. And Denise gave a statement at his hearing and asked that he got life in prison because she feared for her life and her daughter's life. So Brian pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in prison on December 17th, 2017. People were confused because originally life in prison was on the line, but it came out that the police had another plan in mind. Police had still suspected that Brian and Denise had something to do with Mike Williams' disappearance, so they came to him with a plea deal. They told
Interesting.
Brian that he would have full immunity for any past crimes. He just had to come clean and bring us some evidence about Denise. And he did.
So
He,
he has immunity if he had a part in that, if he brings some evidence about Denise after he almost killed Denise.
yeah, so police were suspecting Denise for a very long time.
Yeah.
In her interrogation, like after this happened, when she came to police about what Brian had just done, they're like, why would he feel the need to do this? Like, why would he feel like he
Oh,
needs to
I
silence
was thinking
you?
that too. Right. Like why is it life or death if you guys separate?
Exactly. And
Like
there's
what
that whole like double, like you can't testify against your own spouse and all of that thing, you know.
Yeah, but still though, something feels really wrong about him getting immunity when he almost killed her just because he gives her away. Like he's immune, like he doesn't have to do time. Was he not a part of it? I guess I'm feeling like maybe I should let you just tell the story, but I guess I'm feeling like he was also kind of in cahoots with her on the whole Mike thing, and then
Right.
he's getting away with it. Okay.
Well, that's a part that is a bit frustrating about this case. So he came clean about everything. He started by saying that him and Denise had started their affair years before Mike went missing. It started in 1997. This was 2 years before they had kids. And that they were on and off since high school. They had always flirted with each other, but nothing serious happened until one night the two couples met up at a concert. And Mike had dropped Denise off so that he could park the car. And Kathy happened to be driving that night and dropped Brian off as well. So it was Brian and Denise together at this concert while they waited for their spouses to come back from parking the cars. And something happened, and that's when they first kissed, and it just snowballed from there. And Denise was apparently very unhappy in their marriage, and Brian was unhappy in his, and they wanted to be together, but they weren't sure how to make that happen. And Denise, this is such a common thread, and it makes me so mad. Denise absolutely refused to get divorced because it was against her religious beliefs. Like, I feel like there's at least a few other cases that we've covered where this comes into play. And it's
So,
so murder?
right. So, like, take another human life and face the consequences for that, risk the
Mm-hmm.
consequences for that instead of, like, the math just doesn't even math there. You can't even grow
It's
math your way out of
not.
that.
Right, because it's clearly not the religious aspect. You just want to keep up with public appearances. You don't care what God
That's a good
thinks.
point.
You just
Right.
care what other people think of
Obviously,
you.
because God would know.
Right. And it just is so frustrating. Like the cognitive dissonance in this whole thing, how they justify it, how it's okay now. I don't know. It's just so strange to me.
It's
And
bizarre.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. And
Can someone,
it does pop up a lot.
yeah, like listeners, like, would you rather commit murder or get a divorce?
Let us know.
And if it's murder, then we don't want to know you.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, let us know in the chat, please.
Like, a divorce sucks, but like, even if you're a super selfish person who doesn't give a shit about anyone else, if you do the math, the
mhm.
risk of like doing time for that thing, you have to be so egotistical or narcissistic to think that you're going to get away with it
Mhm.
and you're not going to have any consequences for it. That's the only thing I can like think of that would drive someone to make that decision, because otherwise it's like, even if you don't give a shit about anyone else and you're thinking about your own, all you're thinking about is yourself, like the consequences for that is still worse to murder someone than to get a divorce.
It is so strange. She also didn't want to have to split the custody of their daughter. That's what she expressed.
So
Um, yeah, she wanted the
it's like
daughter all
just
to
not
herself.
that really upsets me because you're not even thinking of your daughter first.
Right.
If your daughter has a good dad and you affect that.
And he truly, like, of course, we don't know what went on behind closed doors, but I'm sure if there was any, like, abuse involved, Denise would have said so. She never said anything about
True.
that.
Yeah.
And by all things that we can see, he loved being a dad and he loved his life and he was literally being the best that he could. So before long, Denise and Brian began to talk about how they could actually be together without divorce, and that really narrowed their options. Brian claimed that they discussed a couple of ideas, including staging a boating accident in the Gulf that would kill both Mike and Kathy.
The Gulf of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
That one.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was saying, he was like, maybe it's like we'll take the boat out and we'll shove
Like all
them
four
out
of
without
them.
anything, and then they'll, like, he said that Denise and him would go to like a buoy and hang on to the buoy and let the boat go. That way it would seem like it was this tragic accident, but they ended up not wanting to do that because Brian didn't want to kill the mother of his child.
What a
I
crazy
mean,
thought.
right? um, they also discussed staging a burglary at Mike's work because he would often stay late. Like, he would come home in time for dinner and to put Ansley to bed and make sure she's asleep, and then he would often go back to work late at night to finish some things up. So they're saying, oh, we could do this and stage a burglary, but they decided against it because that would prompt an investigation. So they did settle on some kind of boating incident, and it's almost as if they were trying to minimize the actual murder part of it because Brian was saying he just wanted to somehow get Mike in the water and him be stranded, and that way God could decide on what to do and whether he would survive or not. I'm sorry, like, what?
And then like what happened? What if he does survive too? Like you have
Exactly. This was the plan that they went with. There were a couple of false starts where Brian said that Denise would, like, Brian and Mike would be leaving for the hunting trip and then, or like about to leave, and then Denise would be all for it, and then she would get cold feet at the last moment and tell, like, Mike, hey, I don't want you to go. We need to do something, so
okay.
Brian's like, oh my gosh, but they
Yeah.
finally made a concrete plan for it to happen in December, and this was for a couple of reasons. One being that the first life insurance policy, which was for $400,000 that Mike had gotten years before, was about to lapse. And two, Denise and Mike had not had sex since their daughter was born, and they were about to go on this anniversary trip. And Mike maybe thought it was because, due to being like parents, and they were both working full time, that they didn't have time or energy to be intimate. And he expressed to Denise how much he was looking forward to spending time with just him and her, just so that they could reconnect and like get back to their relationship.
Right. Wow.
But
Yeah.
Denise really did not want to have sex with him ever again.
Ugh.
So they came up with this one last plan to make sure that all of their bases were covered. Brian took his wife, Kathy, out to a concert the night before and made sure that she would get super drunk. That way she was hungover in the morning, and there would be no way that she would wake up early. Brian and Mike made plans to go hunting in the morning where they would meet up before dawn. Brian had told Mike that his phone was messed up, so he was just going to leave it at home so that way Mike wouldn't call Brian in the morning. And Brian also made plans with his father in law later in the morning to go fishing as well. So he was like covering
Yeah.
everything.
Wow.
So he left the house that morning, and the plan was for them to meet up at a gas station near Lake Seminole and follow each other to the boat ramp because Brian told Mike that he had this new secret spot that he found where they could go hunting.
Oh
He
my
made sure to
God.
tell Mike to bring his waders as well, and they followed each other to the lake and began their trip and launched the boat. And the next part I'm going to play is the clip of Brian confessing exactly what happened. And I just wanted to play it because there's no way that I can like describe it.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
The overpass I don't think was there at that point, but meet him up at a gas station up near the McDonald's up there. And I met him there. I had told him that we were going to go to a secret special spot to go hunting, and that he needed to bring his waders. I had to make sure that he brought his waders because the belief was there was kind of like there still is probably like a duck hunter's myth that if you fall overboard with your waders, you're going to sink really quick and drown. So I had to make sure that he brought his waders. And so I told him about this, great spot that we were going to go, and he needed to bring his waders. So I met him at the gas station, and I told him when he drove up I was real paranoid about phones and him calling me and there being a record of him calling me. So I told him that my battery was dead on my phone, that there was no reason for him to call me as we were driving over to the lake, because normally we would have called and talked to each other on the phone or even ridden together. I don't even remember how or why I told him that I needed to use my vehicle instead of just going in his, but somehow I came up with some reason to do that.
Right there real quick. You said that you called him and tried to get him to make sure he was going to get the waders. When did you call him to talk about that?
I don't remember specifically. We talked several times. Mike and I talked every day ourselves. So we talked about hunting all the time. And we talked about this trip several times prior to it happening.
Okay.
So I followed him over to the lake. He had his boat behind his Bronco, and I followed him in my white Suburban.
What lake?
Lake Seminole, which is about 50 minutes away. And I told him what landing we needed to go to, and so we pulled into the landing and launched the boat. And I said something. I had to make sure that he had the waders on, so I said something about we're running low on time, or we're going to be really pushed. And
Why was it so important for the waders to be on?
because I believed and we believed that if you fell overboard with the waders on, that you would sink pretty quickly. So I told him something like we're running late. We need to go ahead and put our waders on here and now before we get in and go. And so we both did that. And because I knew where we were going hunting, I was in the back of the boat driving, and he was in the front.
What kind of boat? What kind of boat are we talking about? Talking about like a large airboat, or what are we talking about?
It was what's called a canoe. It's basically a canoe that has a flat back that you can put a small motor on the back of it.
I'm familiar with canoes. Canoes can be a little tipsy.
This
You know,
boat,
the same way?
this boat was, yes, basically like a canoe, so pretty tippy.
Okay. So you put the water in your head now. You're driving.
Yes, sir. I was driving, and I know I was very concerned about the time. Everything had taken longer than what I had anticipated, and I had to be back in town early enough in time to meet my father-in-law for my alibi trip to occur. And so we headed out, and there was a deep area, maybe a couple hundred yards from the landing that we put in at. And we got to that area that I knew was a deep area, and I don't remember exactly how I got him to stand up, but I don't know if I pretended something was wrong with the motor or the weight in the boat was off or something, but I basically stopped the boat and got him to stand up, and when he did, I pushed him into the water.
What happened next?
So he was in the water, and he was like struggling, and the motor of the boat was still running, and I pulled off just a little bit to get kind of away from him so that he couldn't reach back into the boat. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know if he was trying to swim, or I didn't know what was going on, but what I came to find out, or eventually realized, was he was taking the waders and the jacket off. And he got those off, and I think I forgot to tell you about this part before, but I remember now that area of the lake had a lot of snags, a lot of dead trees that come up out of the water, and there's a lot of stumps that come up out of the water. And he swam over one of those stumps and held on to it. And he was panicking, and I was panicking, and none of this was like going well I thought it was going to go. And I didn't know what to do. But he started to yell, And I didn't know how to get out of that situation. And so I had my gun in the boat, and so I loaded my gun, and I made one or two circles around, and I ended up circling closer towards him, and he was in the water. And as I passed by, I shot him
Where did you shoot him?
in the head.
Nothing else.
But when I heard that, I was like, bro, this is crazy. And just to picture your best friend
That's
struggling for
like
his life, and he made it out, and he was holding on to a tree stump.
I can't even like I literally just can't wrap my head around it because the way I love my best friends is it's so deep. I would be in the water pulling them out. Like I just can't I don't understand how I couldn't do that to someone I hate. A crazy and I know that's like he's probably like if I pull him out of the water then where do we go from there? But it's like he was still alive. And that's like it's like my best friends. I've known my best friends since you're one of them since just after high school or high school and we're all so tight and like the love we have for another it's crazy.
Right.
That's your best friend. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, just hearing that confession, like, it just, the way he describes it and everything it was gut-wrenching.
It is.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad to be best friends with people who will never do that.
Yes. Same. Oh my
I
God.
promise never to do that to you.
Pinky promise.
Oh, pinky
Wow.
promise. Oh, yeah,
I
I
swear
hated
myself
that.
to you.
But so he goes on to say how it was still very dark outside. So when he shot him, he closed his eyes because he thought the flash might illuminate Mike's face and he couldn't bear to see it. Convenient. So afterwards, Brian, he had to go get his body back into the boat, and he went back to the ramp. He manages to load the body up, which also I'm wondering there has to be trails of blood here. I don't know.
Right. You
Um,
would think there's, yeah. And that's what goes back to like, it's crazy that there wasn't any interviews or like a look into, like, if you don't know that it's homicide or not, I feel like you
mhm.
should check every angle.
Right. You would think.
But they weren't
Um,
investigating for that, so they wouldn't have found that unless they just like stumbled on it.
right. I guess and also if they were using Mike's boat and he pulled it back into the boat, there would probably be some blood in the boat.
True. Yeah. I mean, he might have cleaned
Unless
it,
there was
but
a
like,
tarp. Yeah, which I haven't found any notes on that, so who knows? But we do get some more insight into what happened afterwards. So afterwards, Brian got Mike's body back into the boat and he goes back to the ramp. He loads the body up into the back of his truck and he starts to drive home. He parks and crawls back into bed where Kathy is still sleeping, and he acts like he overslept when he calls his father-in-law to say he won't make it to their own fishing excursion that he planned as an alibi. However, he still has the body in the back of his trunk. So he ends up saying that he made the excuse to Kathy that he just needed to run a few errands. There was a family Christmas event that was planned for early in the afternoon. So he's like, I got to get a few things for that and then I'll be home. When he goes outside to leave, he notices that blood is dripping from his trunk because driveway is on an incline. So he is panicking. He's like rinsing the blood off of his driveway and stuff. He finally gets it all off and he heads to Walmart with the body in his trunk so
Wow.
he can buy a tarp, a shovel, and some weights. While at Walmart, he runs into someone. This person knows Brian and Mike.
Okay.
And the person in retrospect says that he was acting super crazy and weird and paranoid. It was soon coming out that Mike was missing, so he just assumed that he was just frantic because he was worried about finding his friend.
Right.
But now he's realizing that he was actually in the process of hiding the body.
God. And that his friend was in his trunk.
Brian ends up driving to a nearby body of water called Lake Carr. He strategically went there because
Is
he
it
knows that the...
CARR?
Yeah.
That's
It is.
okay. So the cars are like an environmental, well, they're a family of like environmentalists in Florida who have just really left their name on like all these like really great people. We work with some of the cars, but anyway, sorry.
Wow.
So I'm sure Lake Carr, CARR, was named after them.
Wow.
They
That's
stopped,
crazy.
like, there was this project that was supposed to have a canal across Florida at one point so that boats didn't have to go around the entire peninsula. They would just go through the state of Florida. And there's all these dams that were supposed to be a part of it, but it was going to have like detrimental environmental impacts, and they stopped it, the cars. So, anyways.
So, wow. That's so cool that you know about it. Like, yay. But, well, you may or may not know about this, but he strategically went there because he knows that the lake is super low at that time of year, but will fill up pretty quickly. So his goal was to bury him on the banks there, and that way that water would eventually cover him up. After he buries the body, he is able to do that successfully. He then drives far out of town to a car wash to fully clean his vehicle, and then he rushes back home where his wife, Kathy, is just getting herself and their son ready so that they can go to the family Christmas gathering. And it's at this gathering where Kathy receives a call from Denise asking if she has seen Mike. So for years, it was just this unspoken thing with Denise and Brian. And eventually, he had to sit her down and he told her everything that had happened. But Denise was just trying to block it out of her mind, saying she had no part in this, whatever. Even with all of this, they had an awful relationship and it was filled with lots of affairs to where they both decided to separate. However, Brian was so paranoid that she would snitch on him. It's one of those things like if you snitch on one, you got to snitch on the other. Like you both have this awful, horrible secret. So it all came to a head when he decided to try and kidnap Denise and then kill her and kill himself as well. But then Denise talked him out of it, saying, "It's okay, we'll figure it out."
Yeah. Wow.
So with the plea deal that was arranged between Brian and the police, he will never do time for the murder of Mike Williams. He did lead the police to Mike's body, which was still in the same clothes, and he still had his wedding ring on and was surprisingly well preserved. The water did exactly what Brian wanted it to do. It covered it up so well that police had to bring in backhoes and cadaver dogs to locate the body. Autopsy reports state that he was indeed a victim of homicide. 5 months after the body was found, Denise was arrested when she arrived to her daughter Ansley's 19th birthday party, and she was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and accessory to murder. Brian testified against Denise at her trial, and she was sentenced to life in prison for the murder, and Denise still denies any wrongdoing to this day. Their daughter Ansley believes that her mother had nothing to do with it as well, and both Brian and Denise still remain in jail. Later, Assistant State Attorney John Fuchs said in a court hearing, Cheryl Williams was right for over 17 years that it was not a disappearance, that Mike Williams was not eaten by an alligator. And during those 17 years, Cheryl Williams stood on street corners with signs imploring police to solve the case. And she wrote more than 200 letters to the governor. I'm glad that his case was solved because literally, I mean, this was 2017. Well, I'm like,
Right.
that's not even that long ago. It's almost
But
10
it's
years ago.
what, 17 years after it happened, right?
Right. So it's really nice that Cheryl got that closure. And she fought to the end, dude. So that was
Wow.
my story for today. But okay, happy steps. So, wow.
Opalite music video. So we got Opalite as a single, which actually we could have mentioned the last time we recorded, and it had just slipped my mind. But we have Opalite as a single now. Great single. Should have been Wood, if you ask me. It's so boppy.
Could've, would've, should've.
Could have, would have, should have. It's so good. I mean, the Jackson 5 track is so good.
It's so good. The sampling is top tier, and I love it. I have grown to love that song so much.
It is so good. But Opalite is
Whoa!
also
Grown to love. Okay. Woo! Okay.
like a redwood tree, one might say. Opalite is a great one though. And it was on my list of like ones that could definitely be singles. What do we usually get, like 2 singles an album, right? So this is probably our last one.
I think so. Well, with Midnights, we got Lavender Haze, Antihero, then Lavender Haze, and then Bejeweled, and then Karma.
Oh.
But were those technically singles or just music? It's like, does a music video equal a single?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think there's some music videos that aren't. I don't know, actually. You might be right.
We
Good
were so
question.
blessed though with that many music videos then. So I wonder. But Tortured Poets, we only got Fortnite. And that's it.
And
it was
pretty
strange.
Yeah. I mean, we got 31 songs and only one. No, we did get I Can Do It With a Broken Heart later.
True.
Cool. It was almost a teaser to like the Eras Tour documentary and movie and Showgirl, obviously, with like the
right.
God,
that is the most
mastermind.
Showgirl. I know. Yeah, the most.
We
Showgirl
have to
thing.
talk about the whole Graham Norton show of it all.
Oh my gosh.
Do we need to give any insight into this? So we're talking about the Opalite music video that recently came out that we referenced at the beginning of the episode. And do you want to give the history on the people who were in it? I feel like you knew it pretty well.
Okay, so essentially right when The Life of a Showgirl came out, Taylor went on the Graham Norton show, which she has done a few times before, but there was a lot of discourse over this whole appearance because Taylor was there obviously to promote her new album, and there were a few other guests. One was Cillian Murphy. There was Louis Capaldi. He has his own music career, and then a few other people. And Taylor talked about her engagement ring, which people noticed that Cillian Murphy they said that he side-eyed her about it and that he was like over talking about it. And then Louis Capaldi said something about how he wasn't able to talk about his album that he was about to release. And when he was like, I'm not allowed to talk about it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And Taylor said, who told you not to talk about it? And people just assumed it was Taylor's team telling him not to talk about it, when in reality, that's not what happened at all. It was his own team saying, hey, don't announce this before it's officially announced. Like you're announcing it preemptively.
Right.
Don't do
like
that.
He didn't even have a name for it, the album
Exactly.
yet.
Exactly. And everyone just assumed that Taylor was being this mean girl and that Killian Murphy was like so over Taylor talking about her engagement when it literally just happened. And it's just so cool to see this clapback. Like,
Yeah. So the clapback is that all of the people who are on the Graham Norton show, was Louis Capaldi in it?
yes, yes.
Oh, he was too. So all the
Hmm.
people, what does he look like? Which one is he?
He's
I,
the
I,
photographer. And he's like, "Can I be your
oh.
friend?"
So all the people who were on the Graham Norton show, that everyone had this discourse about, that like Taylor was stifling pretty much about their own careers and like holding down, which like I think we have seen enough from Taylor to know that she really enjoys lifting people up around her. Anyways, everyone is saying that she was stamping on people around her and like suppressing them, um and like their careers, so she had all those people who are on the show with her in this music video, and that's just, it's so funny, it's so mastermind, it's
So Domhnall Gleeson says at one point in the Graham Norton show how he would love to be a part of her music video. And there's this moment where she goes like, "Oh my goodness." And people are suspecting it was that moment that she had this idea um, to cast all of them. And I do think because the moment that Louis Capaldi said, "I'm not allowed to talk about it, but here's my album," and she was acting like, or she was like, "Oh my gosh, what?" I feel like in that moment, she knew that people would assume that it was her team saying not for anyone else to do it, which is not the case.
right.
So it's just so cool that in that moment she maybe was able to come up with that idea of, let's just squash this.
Right, yeah.
What are
And
we
let's do this
doing?
thing together. Yeah, that is so cool. I love it. I love the aesthetic of the whole video too, just like the 90, I mean, I'm a millennial, we are, so like it just like brings that the MTV logo, and like I don't know, it just brings me back, the mall, all of that.
The mall, the whole vibes. I loved the video. It was everything that I could ever hope for as a Swiftie. And I think most Swifties would say the same. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
loved it, loved it. Thanks for joining us this week on Crimenelia Street. You can follow us on TikTok at Crimenelia ST Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Crimenelia Street. You can like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube at Crimenelia Street Podcast, or you can send us an email with any episode ideas, any true crime experiences of your own that you want to share with us at crimneliast@gmail.com. Bye, clowns.